Softwar, a novel theory on power projection and the national strategic significance of Bitcoin, by Jason P. Lowery, February 2023. Published under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 international license. Narrated by an artificial intelligence based on the voice of Tony J. Produced by Parker Banks at pbanks.net and youtube.com/pbanks. Producer's note: this narration has been edited to remove the majority of references to figures and images present in the original text, with additional descriptive text added as needed. Abstract. Current analysis of Bitcoin's underlying proof-of-work technology is almost exclusively based on financial, monetary, or economic theory. Recycling the same theoretical frameworks when performing hypothesis-deductive analysis of Bitcoin has the potential to create systemic-level analytical bias, which could negatively impact public policy-making efforts and could even pose a threat to U.S. national security. This thesis introduces a novel theoretical framework for analyzing the potential national strategic impact of Bitcoin as an electro-cybersecurity technology rather than a peer-to-peer cash system. The goal of this thesis is to give the research community a different frame of reference they can utilize to generate hypotheses and deductively analyze the potential risks and rewards of proof-of-work technologies as something other than strictly monetary technology. The author asserts it would be beneficial for researchers to explore alternative functionality of proof-of-work technologies to eliminate potential blind spots, provide a more well-rounded understanding of the risks and rewards of proof-of-work protocols like Bitcoin, and positively contribute to the development of more informed public policy in support of the March 2022 U.S. Presidential Executive Order on ensuring the responsible development of digital assets and the May 2022 U.S. Presidential Executive Order on improving the nation's cybersecurity. Utilizing a grounded theory methodology, the author combines different concepts from diverse fields of knowledge, for example, biology, psychology, anthropology, political science, computer science, system security, and modern military strategic theory, to formulate a novel framework called power projection theory. Based on the core concepts of power projection theory, the author inductively reasons that proof-of-work technologies like Bitcoin could not only function as monetary technology, but could also, and perhaps more importantly, function as a new form of electro-cyber power projection technology, which could empower nations to secure their most precious bits of information, including but not limited to financial bits of information, against belligerent actors by giving them the ability to impose severe physical costs on other nations in, from, and through cyberspace. The author calls this novel power projection tactic Softwar and explores its potential impact on national strategic security in the 21st century. Like most grounded theory research efforts, the primary deliverable of this thesis is a novel theory rather than deductive analysis of a hypothesis derived from existing theory. Thesis Supervisor Joan Rubin, Executive Director, System Design and Management Program, Acknowledgements. First, I would like to thank General C.Q. Brown for giving me the courage and top cover to devote myself to this research topic, and to the Department of the Air Force for entrusting me with this assignment. I would also like to thank everyone in my personal life who tolerated the amount of time and mental effort I committed to this. You gave me the continual support and confidence I needed to follow through. This endeavor turned out to be more challenging than I expected, in ways that I never would have expected, and your support, plus your sacrifice, played an essential role. I would like to thank everyone who helped me formulate this grounded theory. When I first indicated my interest in this topic, I could not have imagined the amount of feedback I would receive. I feel very thankful for everyone who took the time to listen to me and challenge my reasoning. Your discourse helped me question my biases and pushed me to formulate the structure of the theory as it exists today. I owe the success of this research effort to you. Thank you for your sincere feedback. I look forward to future discussion and debate. It's impossible for me to list everyone who I wish to thank by name, but a few specific people I want to give thanks to are as follows: Adam Back, Greg Foss, Robert Breedlove, Jeff Booth, Preston Pish, Level 39, Michael Saylor, Natalie Smolensky, Asher 68W, Mike Alfred, Dennis Porter, Jason Williams, Luke Groman, Jim O'Flaherty, Susie B., Max and Stacey Kaiser, Peter McCormack, Anthony Joe, and John Pompliano, Natalie Brunel, Ben Prentice, Joe Burnett, Matthew Pines, Erin Malone, Brandon Quittem, Brian Harrington, Thomas Strolight, George Peacock, Nathan Perry, Corey Swan, Dylan Leclerc, Tour de Meester, Marbella Hodel, Bobby von Hodelwitz, C.K. Snarks, Mike Hobart, Wealth Theory, Alex Gladstein, Joseph Aguirre, Ghazale Victoria, Taran Chattaraj, Eric Hart, Samson Mao, Phil Dubois, Jimmy Song, Nick Bartia, Kelly Lannon, Dan Held, Powens, W.S. Bitcoin, Mark Moss, and many, many others. It has truly been a pleasure engaging with you. I would also like to thank Rebecca for the custom drawings she provided. Biography. Major Jason Spook Lowery is a Department of Defense, DoD, sponsored U.S. National Defense Fellow, Department of the Air Force Fellow, MIT System Design and Management Fellow, Astronautical Engineer, and Active Duty Technology and Innovation Officer in the U.S. Space Force, USSF. Prior to attending MIT, Jason served as the Director of Operations for the USSF 2nd Space Launch Squadron. Before that, he was a founding member of the cadre of officers who stood up USSF, serving as the Deputy Chief of the Commander's Action Group for USSF Space Operations Command and U.S. Space Command, U.S. Spacecom, Combined Force Space Component Command, CFSCC. Jason transferred into USSF from the U.S. Air Force, USAF, where he served as an all-source intelligence analyst and subject matter expert in electronic warfare, blast and ballistics effects, and space weapon system design. Jason has a decade of experience serving as a technical advisor for U.S. senior officials, to include the Office of the President of the United States, OPOTUS, Office of the Secretary of Defense, OSECDEF, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI. He has a master's degree in astronautical engineering from Air Force Institute of Technology, Ohio, and a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Baylor University, Texas. Executive summary. Consider the 5 different ways that machinery can be used to impose severe physical costs on others in, from, and through 5 different domains. That is land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace using tanks, ships, planes, satellites, and computers, respectively. In cyberspace, specialized machinery is used to keep special bits of information called Bitcoin secure against belligerent actors. The bottom line of this thesis is that Bitcoin isn't strictly a monetary protocol. Instead, Bitcoin appears to be emerging as a cyber power projection tactic for the digital age. While most software can only logically constrain computers, Bitcoin can physically constrain computers and impose severe physical costs, as measured in watts, on belligerent actors in, from, and through cyberspace. Bitcoin's global adoption could therefore represent a revolutionary approach to cybersecurity and could dramatically reshape how digital-age societies secure their most valuable resources. Bitcoin could represent a strategically vital national security technology for the digital age. However, the American public may not understand why Bitcoin has the potential to be so strategically important, because they don't appear to understand the complexity of 1. The computer theory behind the design concept called proof of work, 2. Modern power projection tactics, 3. The function of militaries, or 4. The profession of warfighting. If the theories presented in this thesis prove to be valid, then the American public's lack of understanding about these core concepts could jeopardize U.S. national strategic security. The future of U.S. national strategic security hinges upon cybersecurity, and Bitcoin has demonstrated that proof of work functions as a new type of cybersecurity system. Nations appear to be waking up to the potentially substantial strategic benefits of Bitcoin and learning that it could be in their best strategic interest to adopt it, hence Russia's recent 180-degree pivot to supporting Bitcoin. Another Cold War could be kicking off, except instead of a space race, it could be a cyberspace race. As is often the case with the emergence of any new power projection technology, speed of adoption may be critical. If the US does not consider stockpiling strategic Bitcoin reserves, or at the very least encouraging Bitcoin adoption, the author believes the US could forfeit a strategically vital power projection technology, lead to one of its greatest competitors, and set itself back in global power dominance. The current approach that US leaders are taking to analyze the potential risks and benefits of proof-of-work technologies like Bitcoin could therefore represent a threat to US national security. It is particularly concerning that US policymakers have arbitrarily chosen to categorize Bitcoin as cryptocurrency and tacitly allow institutions with conflicts of interest to claim to be experts in proof-of-work technology. These institutions could use their misperceived expertise to influence public policy-making efforts for their own benefit, compromising US national strategic security in the process. Computer scientists have been researching proof-of-work protocols for over 30 years. That's more than twice as long as Bitcoin has existed. Since the beginning of this research endeavor, it was hypothesized that proof-of-work protocols could serve as a new type of cybersecurity system that could empower people to keep computer resources, namely their most valuable bits of information, secure against hacking and exploitation, simply by imposing severe physical costs in the form of computer power on belligerent actors trying to access or interfere with that information. In other words, computer scientists rediscovered what military officers have known about physical security for thousands of years. To stop or deter bad guys from doing bad things, make it too physically expensive for them to do those bad things. While academia theorized via formal academic channels about how proof-of-work could work, software engineers and doers like Adam Back, Hal Finney, and Satoshi Nakamoto designed, built and deployed several operational prototypes via informal, non-academic channels. Today, Bitcoin has emerged as by far the most globally adopted proof-of-work cybersecurity system to date. Bitcoin is so physically powerful in comparison to other open-source proof-of-work protocols that a popular mantra has emerged, initiated by technologist Michael Saylor, MIT, 1987. There is no second best. But what could Bitcoin possibly have to do with warfare? To understand this connection, one must recall the primary function of militaries. Sovereign nations have a fiduciary responsibility to their people to protect and defend access to international thoroughfares, for example land, sea, air, space, to preserve freedom of action and the ability to exchange goods with other nations. When a nation intentionally degrades another nation's freedom of action or ability to exchange goods across these thoroughfares, that activity is often considered to be an act of war. Militaries exist explicitly to protect and defend people's access to these thoroughfares. The way militaries accomplish this is by imposing severe physical costs on those who try to deny access to these thoroughfares or impede a population's ability to exchange goods across them. Military branches are categorized based on the thoroughfare they assure access to and preserve freedom of action in. Armies assure access to land, naval forces assure access to the sea, air forces assure access to the sky, space forces assure access to space. Regardless of the domain to which access is secured, each service effectively works the same way. Preserve the nation's ability to utilize each thoroughfare by imposing severe physical costs on anyone who denies access to it. Physical power is used to stop and deter belligerent activity in, from, and through these thoroughfares. The more physically powerful, motivated, and aggressive a military is, the better it usually performs. The more a military service can utilize technology to project power in clever ways, the more effective it is at its primary value-delivered function. One of the most strategically important thoroughfares of the 21st century is colloquially known as cyberspace. It is of vital national strategic interest for every nation to preserve their ability to exchange a precious resource across this thoroughfare, valuable bits of information. Just like they already do for land, sea, air, and space, sovereign nations have both a right and a fiduciary responsibility to their people to protect and defend their access to this international thoroughfare. If a nation were to intentionally degrade another's freedom of action or ability to exchange valuable bits of information across cyberspace, that activity would likely be interpreted as an act of war, as it would in any other domain. Until Bitcoin, nations have not had an effective way to physically secure their ability to freely exchange bits of information across cyberspace without resorting to kinetic, that is, lethal power. This is because they have not had access to technology which enables them to impose severe physical costs on belligerent actors in, from, and through cyberspace. This appears to have changed with the discovery of open-source proof-of-work technologies like Bitcoin, a complex system which empowers people to physically restrain belligerent actors. This technology works, and adoption has already scaled to the nation-state level. Thanks to proof-of-work protocols like Bitcoin, nations can now utilize special machinery to impose severe physical restrictions on other nations in, from, and through cyberspace in a completely non-destructive and non-lethal manner. This capability has the potential to transform cybersecurity by enabling computer networks to run computer programs which don't give a specific group of users special or unimpeachable permissions over the computer network and entrusts them not to exploit those permissions. With the ability to impose severe physical costs on users through cyberspace, zero-trust computer networks and a new type of internet can now be designed where users can have their special permissions physically revoked if they abuse or exploit them. The first computer network to prove this design concept appears to be the network of computers utilizing Bitcoin. Bitcoin is proof that proof of work works. At its core, Bitcoin is a computer network that transfers bits of information between computers using a zero-trust physical security design. As previously mentioned, bits of information can represent any type of information, including but not limited to financial information that might be used to support international payments and financial settlements. It makes perfect sense that a proof-of-work computer network's first use case would be to physically secure the exchange of vital financial bits of information, but that is clearly not the only use case. This technology could have far wider-reaching applications, as there are many other types of precious information that society would want to physically secure in the information age. To that end, Bitcoin could represent the dawn of an entirely new form of military-grade electro-cyber information security capability, a protocol that people and nations could utilize to raise cyber forces and defend their freedom of action in, from, and through cyberspace. The bottom line is that Bitcoin could represent a soft war or electro-cyber defense protocol, not merely a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The author believes proof-of-work technology could change the future of national strategic security and international power dynamics in ways that we have barely started to understand.